Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. You can find us on Facebook. The name of the Facebook page is, guess what? The Writer's Dream. You can find us on Cablevision on channel 115 at 2:30 on Thursdays. And you can find us here at LTV, and just look for the video shows. And we're there, The Writer's Dream. So if you want to be on the show, please message me through the Writer's Dream Facebook page. Thank you so much. I am Linda Frank. I am the author of Annie Tillery Mystery Series. And today's guest is Dr. Rene Vazquez. And he has written a book that I wish I had read 40 years ago, maybe 50 years ago, called Heart Crotch Connections. And welcome to the show. And tell us a little bit about your fascinating background, please.
Okay, well, I was born in New York City, actually, in the island of Manhattan, raised in Queens. I wound up going to Queens College, where I studied, my major was in psychology. Subsequently, I went to Columbia University, where I got my master's in clinical social work, and then I went to CUNY Graduate School to get my doctorate. And upon graduating from graduate school, I went to work for the New York State Office of Mental Health, where I eventually retired from. I worked there for 30 years, primarily doing psychotherapy treatment. I was a psychiatric social worker. And the last 10 years of that, I was a team leader. So I actually supervised most of the staff, a staff of about 30, from psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, nurses, art therapists, music therapists. And I retired from there in 2010, and that's when I started considering writing the book. I started it in 2010, and I actually put it down for a good 10 years. It was a hiatus where I really thought about what it was I wanted to develop, what it was that I was conceptualizing and theorizing about, and gave myself time, those 10 years, to work with my patients, developing this theory and this formula that I created, which I call Head, Heart, Crotch, which really is, it's more of a modern distillation of that mind, body, spirit paradigm. You know, it's just another way, a 21st century way of saying that. But I had said to myself, if I write a book entitled Mind, Body, Spirit Connections, probably nobody would buy it. You know, so to create an attraction, an appeal, I decided to call Head, Heart, Crotch Connections.
Sex sells.
Sex sells, yeah. And people think it might be a book about sex, but it really isn't. It's about relationships and how do we connect intellectually, emotionally, and sexually.
Yeah, well,
Those
and
three
you know
areas.
what I find fascinating about your whole story is that you approach this in a very scientific way. And you took the experience of a lifetime, really, and put it together, all the things that you learned from your patients, because I believe that being a psychotherapist is somewhat like being a teacher, where they learn from you and you learn from them. And that's the way it should work. And
It's a reciprocal relationship,
Right.
absolutely.
you made it all gel into your theory. So explain your theory.
Okay, well, the book is a self-help book, and it's a call to action. It's designed to get readers to consider their connections in their relationship, the type of connection they have, the level of intimacy it attains, and how do you overcome the difficulties in creating that quote-unquote perfect union, in finding that mate that fits your needs and you fit their needs.
So if I met somebody, and usually when you meet somebody, something about them is attractive to you. And so let's say, not me, but because I'm too old for this, let's say it's a young couple meet and they're physically attracted to one another. How do they apply this idea of head to themselves?
Well, usually on their own they wouldn't. This is in the process of psychotherapy is where I get my patients or my clients, depending on whatever term you want to use, to explore that, to delve into their connections that they've made intellectually, emotionally, and sexually. When you're younger, as you have thought about, usually the attraction is a sexual first,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
and then you begin to consider what is it you like about their mind, their cognitions, their thoughts, what is it you like about them emotionally, their feelings, their emotions, their affects, you know. So in a therapy, you get them to explore that and to delineate, to dissect each one of their connections in those three areas.
So, I'm thinking of head connections. So, what kinds of things would they look for?
When we're talking about a head connection, we're talking about how do they feel about their partner's thoughts, their beliefs, their values, their morals? Do they admire them? Do they respect them? Do they connect to them? Do they find them disjointing? Are they insulted by them? Are they, you know, or do they respect them and admire them and feel attracted to them and wish to hear more? You know, that's a head connection. The heart connection is about the emotional expression. How do they feel about their partner's feelings towards them, the feelings that they express? Are they genuine? Are they caring? Are they loving? Are they considerate? Do you feel safe
Yeah,
with the emotional expression?
safety is a very important
Safety
factor
is a
in a
huge
relationship.
thing. Whether it's, do you feel safe with expressing your thoughts? Do you feel safe expressing your emotions? And do you feel safe with your sexual wishes and desires?
Oh, yeah.
So it's safety in the three different areas.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very important part of a relationships. Sometimes I think people get into relationships, I call it the excitement factor. That person excites them. And sometimes that excitement is dangerous.
Well, it can be,
Ah,
whether it's an excitement in any one of those three areas.
yes. So, are you still practicing?
I've been in private practice for the last 10 years. I work at three different outpatient settings, one out here at the East Hampton Family Medicine with Dr. Dempsey at the Healthcare Foundation. I work at a clinic called Latino Support and another clinic called the Queens County Neuropsych Institute, both in Jackson Heights, Queens.
And do you do couples counseling?
I do individual, couples, and families.
So, but my question, because it's really related to my own life. My question is, if you're young and you're starting out, how do you learn about this? How do you, do you run like workshops for young people who are going to get married or just get into a relationship?
Well, I haven't devised workshops because this is actually the first time I've actually put my thoughts down, the technique anyway, into a book. I've considered doing webinars and trainings on it, to
Yeah.
get the word out.
Well, that's a way to do it. The reason why I say this is when I was young, I was Catholic, and if you got married, you had to go to, in the church, you had to go to a Cana conference where a priest who was never married talked to you about marriage. And it's a good idea, but I think the person who is running it should be somebody who has a little experience. Either with married couples or being married themselves. So I think this is just such a great idea for people who are going to get into a relationship, because I think oftentimes, as we said, the first attraction is sexual, and then after that you might learn something nice about that person, or you may learn that you can't even talk to them.
Part of the technique is to discover the order of your attraction. What attracts you most about that individual? The book is called Head, Heart, Crotch, but often enough it could be heart, head, crotch, or it could be crotch, head, heart. The order of your attraction is very important. The significance of it to you, which is the most important usual attraction do you have? What do you usually go for? Do you go for an intellectual type? Do you go for an emotional type of person? Or do you prefer that sexual kind of being that evokes sexuality? So understanding your preference for connection and the order of that connection is part of the work that I do with getting the person to understand their attachment to that person.
Yeah, well, that's understanding yourself is important in a relationship, and it takes a while to understand yourself.
And it's important to know not only your connections, but your disconnections. Where are you not connected to that individual? Because where you're not connected, either intellectually, emotionally, or sexually, is often where the demise of the relationship starts. You know, where your relationship is most vulnerable. It's the area. So if you have a difficulty with emotional connection to that person, with their emotional expression towards you, that's what you have to work on. That's your weakest link, so to speak, your area of vulnerability for your relationship.
So in your experience, is it the heart connection that is the one that is the most vulnerable, is the one, it's the cause of the most breakups, because people don't feel safe, they don't feel loved, they don't feel they just feel. I have a relationship with a person now, with a man now, and I feel safe with him. I feel loved. He listens to me. That's very important to me.
Sure. Well, infidelity is a huge reason for example, divorce in this country.
Sure.
Most relationships, actually, 50% of relationships actually fail. 65% of second marriages fail. So the reason why they fail is often very elusive to the individual. It's often filled with shame. It's hard for them to discuss. There's a lot of stigma associated with the demise of a relationship and being able to openly talk about it with others.
Yeah, it's a failure.
It's a
And
failure.
I used to joke about it because I was divorced twice. The first one was their fault, but the second one was my fault. So, because I should have known better or seen something or whatever, but relationships are difficult.
Are difficult, yes. Relationships can be very traumatizing. For example, they can affront your thoughts. They can, assail your emotions, and they can make you question your sexual desires and your wishes.
Yes.
So they can be very fulfilling and gratifying, but they could also be very traumatizing, especially when a relationship ends, where you're trying to figure out what went wrong, where did you disconnect, where did you connect. Hopefully you think about those things, or sometimes they don't and they just move on to another relationship without having figured out what went wrong.
Yes.
And the subtitle of the book, which is how not to fail in search of your perfect union, was really because there's a lot written about how to succeed, but not enough written about how not to fail, what goes wrong. And you need to know what goes wrong to know what goes right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah, I don't think we spend enough time thinking about who we are and what we really what would really make us. We think we know what's going to make us happy, and I think that life is just a progression of picking things up and putting them down, picking things up and putting them down until you find the right combination.
Sure, it's a matter of becoming more introspective. A lot of people are extrospective. They don't think enough about what's going on internally. You know, the heart is what feels the wounds of betrayal and dissatisfaction, and then it's what informs the mind that something is wrong or missing, and that we're feeling anxiety. But if you don't take the time to think about those two things, then you tend to just repeat problems in your life.
Yeah, that's true. So you did all of this work in your life and you put this construct all together. Why did you write the book?
I wrote it at the behest of my patients.
How about that?
They realized the formula that I had devised, this thing about looking at the intellect, the emotions, and the sexual nature of the relationship, calling it head, heart, crotch. And I used to use those words with them. I would ask them to discuss their head connection, their heart connection, their sexual connection, And the more I got them to look at that, the more they were able to improve their relationship, increase their understanding of what they were involved with, who they were involved with. And they were the ones who came to me and said, "You have to write this down. you know.
Yeah. See, what a compliment that is.
Yeah.
So, so you wrote the book, and it's nonfiction. And nonfiction, I want you to know,
Sure.
sells better than fiction.
Well,
People go to Barnes and Nobles and they go to Amazon and they want to know how to fix themselves and how to
self-help,
fix
yeah.
the house and how to fix
Fix-
whatever.
How to.
How to, yes.
Yeah, yes.
And so nonfiction sells very well. What was the most fun about doing this project?
I don't know if I would call it fun, but it was satisfying.
Okay.
It was very satisfying to hear the acceptance and recognition from the professional world, from other clinicians, therapists, to hear from patients.
Do you have a review?
I have a review online on the Amazon. I have lots of reviews.
Well, I'm going to read this one. It's not really a review, but it's good. It's Heart Crotch Connections focuses on a full picture of everything you need to know to overcome common conflicts in relationships to improve your connections with others, mind, body, and soul. The term crotch connection refers to where sexuality occurs physically, but genuine intimacy is created in the head and the heart. Loving, romantic, healthy connections can occur when we bring together attachments that combine our thoughts, feelings, and sexual wishes. That really puts it all together, doesn't it?
For many of the clients, it was easier for them to identify their connections, head, heart, crotch wise. What was more challenging for them often enough was identifying what their partners were attracted to, because they never really thought about it. Kind of like in a very narcissistic, self-involved way, you think about what it is you like in the other person, but it's so much more difficult to imagine what is it that that person likes about you.
Yeah. Unless they tell you.
Unless they tell you and unless you ask.
Yeah.
In the asking is where you find the complementarity in it. You find out the reciprocity and how to improve a connection. What is it that your partner likes about your thoughts, your feelings, the sexual desires? In exploring that is where you develop more intimacy.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. So you're going to make a lot of people happy, Dr. Vazquez, I think, with this book, because you just make people think more about it. I think that's the key. So, how did you publish?
I actually self-published. I
Welcome to the club. Who
I
did you?
approached a school called Self-Publishing School,
Okay.
which helped me with structuring the nature of the book, the title of the book, the cover. They guide you, they give you coaching classes, they help you create a what's called a mind map, and which helps you develop your thoughts, where in the center of that diagram you put your main theme, which is connections, and then all around it you devise your thoughts, and they call mind mapping. And that mind map helps you develop the book.
Yeah, because I think a nonfiction book, because it contains information and ideas, it's not like a fiction book where the chapter progresses one to the next, and really there is no mapping. There's just doing it.
Yeah.
Just telling the story. When you have all this information and you want it to appear in a logical order, that's very important. So you found a good place to help you out with that. And the hardest part is not the publishing. Publishing is kind of a learning experience. The hardest part is marketing. And so what have you done so far?
Well, even in marketing and selling, the school has been instrumental because we have ongoing seminars and weekly Zoom meetings discussing selling more books and how to go about selling it on Amazon, how to go Amazon ads, Facebook ads, how to put videos on Instagram.
That's right. They even say TikTok. You could do that.
Well, yeah, TikTok videos are very significant because you have these hashtag sites where you can TikTok books, books of TikTok, all different, hashtags that you can employ and reach out to and have people comment on. And it is one of the major forces in terms of selling books these days now,
Sure.
especially to the younger generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And
Facebook
that's
tends to address a slightly
Yeah.
older generation.
Mhm.
So each one of those forums has their, their population, their people who
Right.
go to these forums.
Well, I think that because you are a professional and you belong to professional organizations, approaching them and asking them about promoting your book as maybe on their websites or to their clientele who are also social workers or psychologists, that to put the book in their office.
Absolutely. Another way of marketing is to do podcasts, radio shows, television shows. These are all ways of marketing.
Yeah, that's my next endeavor. Is I'm going to make little videos on Zoom and put them on Facebook and other places, because I've kind of run out of options to market my books as well. I mean, I do have, I visit schools. In fact, I set up book fairs in schools, so that's helpful to me. But COVID killed that.
Exactly. Book fairs, going to local bookstores,
Mhm.
asking the
Libraries.
Libraries. Absolutely.
And every interview show you could do, whether it be radio or because eventually what should have the university that you are, the book publishing university, they should have a listing of or maybe you could ask them for a listing of local places where you could do interviews, radio and TV.
And TV.
I mean, I could see you on any of the TV news shows that I watch.
Interesting. I just recently applied for Ingram Spark, which is a way of doing worldwide global distribution of your books.
Yes, that's very important. You have a publisher, but you need a distributor.
A distributor.
And Ingram Sparks is it. Did you do it through IBPA, Independent Book Publishing Association?
No, I didn't. I did it
All
on
right.
my
Look into
own.
It's IBPA. Just Google it and it'll come up, and they give you a discount on a lot of things like that. And it's for self-publishing authors. A lot of hints, and that's how I found out about TikTok Book. So I thought perhaps you did too, but that's a good resource as well. So
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, I try to do that. I try to give people advice. We have about a minute left. What's next?
Sure. What's next? I've considered having the book translated into Spanish. It's a large market out there who could benefit from.
Oh yeah, and I should talk to you about that because I would love to. I have mystery stories for kids. I think they'd be great for Spanish-speaking kids.
Sure.
So I've been thinking about that for a while. So I will keep in touch with what's going on in the world of translating books. But I think you have a really wonderful book here, a very helpful book. And when I pick something up and I say, "Gee, I wish I had," that's a
Thank you.
That's a
gratifying
testimonial.
to hear.
So thank you so much for coming and explaining. And I think this is a very interesting interview.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.